Sunday, the big day in the National Football League, AFC Conference Championship, NFC Conference Championship, although I think I just said conference twice. Bloom, we've got to talk about them here. And it's Kansas City and Baltimore. We collectively combine the two teams, unlike our season-long
Right.
previews. So we're talking about both. Honestly, I do not know how Baltimore loses this game.
Right.
This one is huge. Mark Andrews should be back. He's been practicing in full. Of course, he did that last week, and they chose to keep him out of that contest. So now he's back most likely this week. We'll see what that does for that team, only strengthens them further. Lamar Jackson is amazing. Outside of Jackson getting bounced from this game, I really don't know how Baltimore loses this one, but Kansas City is going to put up a fight with a running back that always puts up a fight. His name's Isaiah Pacheco. He's got a little bit of a toe injury, I believe now. It's always something with Pacheco. As long as it's not his shoulders, it seems to be okay. He's the angriest runner in the league, but helping out. Pat Mahomes, one of the greatest passers of all time right now, and he's not even done, not even close. So Kansas City, Baltimore. This one is going to be absolutely epic. I think, honestly, it'll be the best game of the weekend. And really, Bloom, it might actually be the Super Bowl. We're Clash of the Titans here. Chiefs, Ravens. Let's get it on.
Yeah, this one, as you kept touching on, I think that the opening note of previewing this game is it's now or never Baltimore. Both the team and how it's set up and the script they have, a cakewalk against the Texans, and facing a flawed but extremely dangerous Chiefs team. Extremely dangerous because they have the playoff mystique. They have the mystique. This is the first game that Patrick Mahomes will ever have played on the road in the playoffs. I'm
Last
sorry.
week.
Yes, last week was.
Last
So
week, yeah.
there's the first conference championship. I'm sorry. This is the first conference championship we'll play on the road. But that just shows you the mystique and how. I mean, if there's one way, Cecil, you're like, how are they going to lose? How are they going to lose? If there's one way they're going to lose, it is that psychological mindset issue of the Chiefs believe they're going to win these games, and the Ravens have been a very severe underachiever in the playoffs during the Lamar Jackson era. So if things start to go against the Ravens, then you start potentially getting this bad feeling, right? Ask the Bills about the bad feeling. So let's start at the history of Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes because they haven't played since 2021. But the Chiefs are actually 3-1 against Lamar. But in the last one, Lamar Jackson won 36-35 in a fourth quarter comeback, down 2 scores. So at least the last time Lamar Jackson played Patrick Mahomes, he overcame this. It wasn't in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson hasn't really had a signature playoff win yet. Hasn't really had that game where he shows that in the most important moments, in the most important games, he can make the best plays that he can make. But he did have that. And as a rookie, he actually lost to Patrick Mahomes in overtime. So they can play this Chiefs team close. The question is, can they, number one, keep Mahomes from hurting them? And I think that the answer here, you got Jadeveon Clowney, who's actually very quietly had a resurgence this year. Odafe Owe, they've got the great linebacker combination. That Roquan Smith trade has really worked out. Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. Marlon Humphrey is healthy. So you have the players. I think when Baltimore is on defense and Mike McDonald, who's one of the hottest names, this certainly Mike McDonald, I think, is going to have a very specific game plan for Patrick Mahomes. And I actually think, Cease, I'll toss it to you, ask you this. I actually think we think of Lamar Jackson as a quarterback that you want to keep in the pocket, that you're not pinning your ears back and rushing. But I think that actually applies more to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think it does apply to Mahomes a lot. And the thing is, with Pacheco, who I love, you're not going to scare Baltimore. You brought up Roquan, you brought up Patrick Queen. Like, you're not scaring Baltimore. You're not intimidating them. You're not out bullying them.
Look what they did to Brock Purdy. They made
Exactly.
Brock Purdy look like Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, okay, you may want to beat them up on the ground, right? It would make sense. Open things up for Mahomes. You've got Kelsey, whose age continues to show. Maybe I'm premature with that. And we've been doing this show long enough, Bloom. It reminds me when Marvin Harrison was done. Like, all of a sudden, Marvin Harrison was just done. And you're like, wait a second, did that just happen? So I don't know if that's necessarily the case with Kelsey. And we also have retirement buzz. You know me, Bloom.
Mm.
I'm always listening for the tea. And oh, what tea I will get when I'm at the Shrine game in the Senior Bowl. But I've already heard Reed would retire this year. I've already heard that Kelsey would retire this year. A lot of people have. So it's not breaking news. But once you think about that, although the Rams and McVay and Stafford proved me wrong, but I've always said once you open that Pandora's box of like retirement, man, I mean, how do you summon up your best? Maybe you do summon up your best, like Ray Lewis did, right? We'll just take it back to Baltimore.
Mhm.
When Ray Lewis knew he was done, what did Baltimore do? They went on a run and they won it all in your neck of the woods with the power out.
Yeah, that's it's funny. Jim Harbaugh is back in the NFL news cycle. John Harbaugh could get potentially back to a Super Bowl. So that Super Bowl down here with the power outage certainly comes into play. And I mean, we could see a Baltimore San Francisco rematch. Certainly, that was what the money, the chalk was going into the playoffs. Another thing, just on the Kansas City side, Joe Thuney, their best offensive lineman, I think, probably not going to play with a pec issue. But I do think on the Kansas City side, like you said, run Pacheco, keep the game low scoring, keep it more like a street fight. But on the Baltimore side, so again, what's different about this Baltimore team than the teams that underachieved with Lamar Jackson at quarterback? The coordinators, we mentioned
Yeah.
Todd Monken too, but also you have a healthy-ish Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Okay, this team now when you have a two tight end set, it's not Nick Boyle, it's not a third tackle. So that's tough to defend, and there's not a lot of tape from this year. Now, will Todd Monken be able to deploy that in a way to really keep Steve Spagnuolo off balance, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs? The other thing is you've got Odell Beckham, you've got Zay Flowers, you've got Rashad Bateman, you've got even Nelson Aguilar. So you really can decide with Gus Edwards, even in Justice Hill. Too bad Keaton Mitchell's not healthy. There's a lot of different modes of this offense. And unlike Baltimore's job against Kansas City, Mike McDonald's job, I mean, it's basically Kelsey and Rice and the running game. There's a lot of different ways that Baltimore can beat you, and Todd Monken is probably going to have a lot of plans. There's so much more to this offense now, and you just want to see how creative they are. What you don't want to see is being conservative. What you don't want to see
Right. Getting
is
tight.
right. Let's just take care of the ball. So Baltimore, I mean, as you're indicating, Cease, there's a top range outcomes for Baltimore here where they can, like they did to San Francisco earlier this year, really humble Kansas City and really show, yes, this is a flawed Kansas City team, and this is the best Baltimore team of the Lamar Jackson era. The question still becomes, can you execute? Can you play up to that? That's what separates the champions from the teams, well, that frankly we don't talk about anymore because they didn't
Right.
live up to expectations.
Right. And they've got Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
They've got Zay Flowers, man. Like, that's going to be interesting and difficult. It won't be shocking to anyone based on the conversation. I'm
Yeah.
going to pick the Baltimore Ravens. And it's not because Chiefs fans can't stand me. Some other Chiefs fan was getting at me on YouTube the other day. And I was like, dude, don't you know the drill? No, it was on Twitter. It was on
Hmm.
Twitter. It was about this show, actually. I think it was
Oh,
we were
okay.
talking about Buffalo. And I don't know if he got back to me, but I was just like, dude, I think Sean McDermott's terrible. Like, how is that not looking at Ken? I guess you have to blow bubbles at everybody. I don't know. All I know is
Mhm.
Chiefs fans don't like me. Whatever. Mahomes is awesome. Greatest, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time already. I love Pacheco. Love Brett Veach. I just
Mm.
don't think I'm going to love that W for KC this week.
Yeah, this is the kind of game you play it 10 times, you get 8 Ravens wins. This might be one of the 2 that is a Chiefs win, but you gotta pick the Ravens here, and I think what you're looking for also, again, is the coordinators. This is what's different than the previous versions that underachieved, and part of that has created here's the other thing I'll say is different. This team committed to Lamar Jackson. So
Mhm.
Lamar Jackson is comfortable now. Lamar
Lamar
Jackson's
Jackson is
mind
different.
can rest. Yeah, because he knows that we're a team. We're committed. We're going into the sunset together, and that sunset might be holding a Lombardi trophy, but they got some business to do on Sunday afternoon first.
Yeah, Sunday, get it done. And then next up, Bloom, this one's going to be interesting. I just kind of want to observe you. I
Yeah.
want to talk to you. I want to
Yeah.
hold you. But mainly I want to observe you when I talk about the Lions and the 49ers. Spoiler alert, I'm taking the 49ers. Okay. Like, let's just get that out of the way. But the Lions can and will put up a fight. It's Dan Campbell. You knock us down, we're going to get back up and chew your kneecap off. Okay. 49ers can knock them down. We'll watch the Debo thing. Right now, as of this recording, we do not know if Debo Samuel's even going to play. We know that McCaffrey is going to play and be a star and is amazing, all that. We already know all the weapons on both sides. But the Lions are different, much different. They've got momentum. San Francisco has all the pressure. This is the team that's been there before, and they're one Jimmy Garoppolo not seeing Emmanuel Sanders play from winning a Super Bowl against Kansas City, by the way. And like souped up Kansas City, not like kind of
Yeah,
staggering in
a,
Kansas
a
City.
superior Kansas City
Yes.
team to the
Yes.
team they put out there. Yeah.
Yes. So Kyle Shanahan has a ton of pressure. He's got a ton of playoff failures already. I love Kyle. Sorry, Kyle, but we're just going to tell the truth. And the truth is belligerent at times. But the truth is, Detroit is playing, I don't want to say house money. That kind of takes away from what they've done. They certainly haven't gotten lucky. They're very skilled. They're a very dangerous team. And they don't have the pressure
Right.
that San Francisco has. And I want to see how that, I want to watch your reaction when you talk about the Lions.
Yeah.
But I also want to see how they react in a game where they're kind of in the driver's seat and they're the flipping road team. Sorry, Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll start here, Cease. I'll just ask you this question. Okay. The result, because like you said, we don't do recaps of the playoff games. The result of the San Francisco Green Bay game last week, where Green Bay was the better team. Green Bay outplayed San Francisco.
100%.
Absolutely outplayed San Francisco, and even had still, after letting San Francisco take a lead late in the game, had a chance to tie or win the game.
Right.
Is that we underestimated Green Bay, that this Green Bay team with Aaron Jones, et cetera, was a lot better than the one we'd seen, and that's just how good they are? Or is it that San Francisco maybe is vulnerable?
San Francisco is 100% vulnerable. Not taking anything away from Green Bay. Again, everyone's so damn sensitive. You got to say it. Like, no. San Francisco put their gloves down. Kyle Shanahan has done this before, 28-3. Right? You're going to put your gloves down. Oh, we got this. Oh, it's Green Bay. Oh, they're lucky to be here. No, it's called Any Given Sunday for a reason. And the 49ers, they're very good. They're damn good, but they're not unstoppable. And they better be careful against the Lions.
Yeah, and this is a Lions team. What's really fun about projecting this game, Cease, is that we talk about, and look, this isn't a 2 versus 15, 1 versus 16 kind of college basketball March Madness matchup, but it is a game where, as the underdog on the road, especially with the Lions' history coming into this, or lack of history in the Super Bowl era, and you have the right coach, right? You have the right coach where, look, if they lose, you're not going to feel like, why weren't they bolder? Why didn't they, like we're talking about with Baltimore, why did they play it so safe? They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that on either side of the ball. And that's exciting. These two teams have played, well, and I say these two teams, I mean the Kyle Shanahan 49ers and the Dan Campbell Lions have played one time, only once. It was actually the first game of the Dan Campbell era. And this game was 41-17 at the 2-minute warning. And the final score was 41-33. And the Lions had the ball to San Francisco 25 with a chance to tie. Down 41-17 at the 2-minute warning, the Lions almost came back and tied that game. It's talking about putting your gloves down, Cease. There you go. So that's your keynote if you're Dan Campbell, right? This was a vastly inferior Lions team. It was the first game of the Dan Campbell era. And they got waxed, just pushed around in their own building by San Francisco, and still almost tied the game. Recovered a couple of onside kicks. Or no, actually, it was like an onside kick, and then Debo Samuel fumbled. And they had a chance. They actually had a chance in that game. So that's something you build on. Because this team is so much better than that team. How are they better? Jared Goff has confidence. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams.
Right.
Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't Amon-Ra St. Brown yet.
And if everybody's healthy, you could say they have better weapons.
Well,
They
they
have the
certainly
better
can.
quarterback.
They can match the firepower of the
They've got a McCaffrey. We
49ers.
got a Gibbs. They also have
And
Montgomery.
they can match the schemes. They can match the ability, like the play last week with Brock Wright. Just the little things, right? The little
Mhm.
things. Ben Johnson dialing up a play where obviously in that situation you're going to Sam Laporta, and you run a play that shows like, hey, we're going to go to something that's very strong in this situation. We're going to go to Sam Laporta, and then you run the blocking tight end across the formation and throw to him instead. That's the kind of chess mindset that I think Kyle Shanahan has always been the natural at, and that you need to win in January and February in the NFL, which is, I know that you know that I know that you know that I know, right? When we put this formation out there in this situation, I know that you're going to be overplaying this aspect of this play. And just like all the good Shanahan plays, every play has 2 or 3 or 4 options. And the quarterback just has to be able to identify and recognize what's going on to know what the right option is. And certainly the sequencing and timing of the play calling can make that even easier. So in some ways, Cease, I think we're going to be watching a game where the two most important figures aren't even on the field. It's Ben Johnson and Kyle Shanahan. But at the same time, you don't you feel like Detroit's going to establish the run? Like, don't you feel like Detroit's just going to come out? It's not something that we didn't expect them to be as successful with Jahmyr Gibbs as they were against Tampa, but they still were a pass-heavy team.
Right.
I I do think that as an underdog on the road, you do want to shorten the game. You want to reduce the number of possessions, and you want to make it a smaller margin of error, and establishing the run does that. And they have a guy, and I mean, we talk a lot about Thunder and Lightning. This is a really ideal, like the platonic ideal of a Thunder and Lightning, in the sense that David Montgomery fight every time he touches the ball to put him on the ground. And then Jahmyr Gibbs can leave you in the dust. Jahmyr Gibbs can absolutely make you look silly in the open field. So this is exciting. San Francisco's defense isn't that scary. You mentioned Deebo Samuel, probably not going to play. Even if he does play, how much of an impact is he going to have?
He'll be a
Detroit,
decoy.
yeah. I mean, I think that, and I think that Detroit has to play, number one, they have to play bend but don't break defense. Okay. What you don't want to see from Detroit's defense, from Aaron Glenn, is a risky, like all risk reward, right? Don't blitz Brock Purdy. How about that? This is like Baltimore and Mike McDonald. How about this? Don't blitz don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. Don't blitz Brock Purdy. Just don't. Just don't. Count on guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Brian Branch. Count on players to make a play when the game focuses on them and says, "Can you make a play right now?" And just keep it so that if you can just get 1 or 2 of those breaks and you don't have any unforced errors. I think Jared Goff has been doing an excellent job keeping mistakes to a minimum, right? There haven't been big swings in these games where Jared Goff is creating momentum for the other team. So that's going to be a key here. I think this is a closer matchup than most people probably have it. And I think that this is going to be a game where we know that the Lions can put emotion on their side, right? We know that the Lions can harness energy from emotion. Could emotion be against San Francisco in this one? Again, where if Detroit shows, think of it like the classic, the title fight, Apollo Creed and Rocky. When Rocky starts landing some punches and the crowd says, wait a second, this is going to be a real fight. This isn't going to be an exhibition. What can San Francisco do to answer that? And I think this one is, the outcome is very much in question.
You are bringing up emotion. You are bringing up vibration. We're only 19 minutes into the show and it's time to get crunchy. If you get that home crowd into like, here we go again mode,
Mm-hmm.
who believes they
Right.
can? Who really believes? And San Francisco's excellent. San Francisco could easily win the Super Bowl, even against Baltimore, right? Which I think Baltimore wins it all. But either way, like, if that crowd starts getting into the here we go, here's another Kyle Shanahan collapse, like Detroit believes. Detroit believes that's a powerful tool for all of us in all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you might pick the Lions, Bloom.
I want to. I mean, I really want to pick the Lions. I'm just going to pick the Lions. I'll pick the Lions, and I'll pick the Lions for this reason. They've tasted success now. Look, they beat the team that probably was most capable of beating San Francisco.
Yes.
And when they beat the Rams.
Yes.
When they beat the Rams. And San Francisco, we were this close to this game being in Detroit and being an NFC North matchup between Green Bay and Detroit. And I know it was before Detroit played, but Detroit had to be watching that San Francisco Green Bay game thinking, we can beat them. We can beat the San Francisco team. And like we said, that's all that matters. And maybe I'm picking with my heart, but yes, I'm picking the Lions.
Okay, picking the Lions. And to wrap up today's program, Chargers have a new head coach. His name's Jim Harbaugh. I said it was a bad day for the Broncos yesterday because it was, because that's the guy they wanted to hire. And now Harbaugh gets Herbert, and I still think he might draft J.J. McCarthy to develop behind Herbert. It's actually kind of genius. Anyway, Harbaugh's back in the league. In the Spanos family, there were rumblings they wanted to not be cheap anymore or not have that illusion of them being cheap. You're getting Harbaugh. Did the money ever come out? I know his 5-year deal was like $100 million, something like that.
Whatever he wants, yeah.
They call it Walter Payton. That's 34 bands. It's lyrics from a rap song, Bloom. Anyway, Harbaugh to the Chargers. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think that it's something that you called weeks ago, by the way. Run it back. I think that what you have here, these elemental forces, where on one hand, Jim Harbaugh has been a success everywhere he's gone as a coach. Everywhere he's gone. Been there. I mean, he didn't, the power outage, right? They didn't win the Super Bowl down here in New Orleans when San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick. And let's keep in mind, like, what happened to Colin Kaepernick's career. He went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. Okay. So, yeah, that's enough for me to say he had a successful run as the San Francisco 49ers head coach. Obviously, he accomplished everything that they wanted in Michigan, and even putting Josh Johnson on the radar, going back to the Toreros, University of San Diego. So Jim Harbaugh's been successful everywhere he's gone. But then you mentioned Spanos, you mentioned the Chargers, and you wonder if this is like a Joe Burrow moment where we had one idea of the Bengals franchise, but then when something happens, the door opens to changing your ways. The door opens to putting that history of this franchise behind them. So we'll see. I mean, I think it sets up a great story, and I think we all just are going to sit back and see what, like you said, J.J. McCarthy. I mean, it's really wide open. What's Jim Harbaugh's plan going to be to get this team to the level that it should be with a quarterback like Justin Herbert? And this probably was the coveted job, right? Because of Justin Herbert. Because why are all the other teams looking for a coach? Because they don't have a quarterback, right? That's the rare thing that happened here, is a team was looking for a coach that had a quarterback already. They got the coach they wanted. They zeroed in. It isn't often that we say the Chargers got it done. The Chargers had a mission and they accomplished that mission. So maybe they'll accomplish the bigger mission in the future.
And they say the Chargers choke till Harbaugh gets there. He's there to kick your ass. Sorry, Joe. He's there to grind your bones into dust. So look out. And if Andy Reid retires, he's the best head coach in the AFC West.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I love Antonio Pierce. Can't say I love Sean Payton. I respect him for sure. I'm afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him. But anyway, that's a wrap for the show. Conference championship. Let's go. Bloom and I will be back on a Tuesday. I'll be on the road going to the Shrine game over the weekend and then to the Senior Bowl next week. So we've got shows for you coming up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, talking about all things National Football League. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.